The sun came up. Sun comes up and it's a new day that's dawning. And it's time to sing our song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before us, may we all keep singing until the evening comes. Those are some good words, aren't they? We are so glad you guys are here this morning. We have, the last really week, we have met together 4 times as a church. Some of you are here in the room, some of you watched online. And it has been so good for us to be together as a family. And today, the sun came up this morning and reminds us that God's mercy is brand new to us. And it allows us to put life into our words and life into our song and to take steps forward and to have hope. And that's what we're doing today. We're super, super glad you guys are here to be a part of that. We know that a lot has happened over the last few weeks, and some of you are just kind of getting back into some routines. And there's things that look way different around here at Port City. So first of all, thank you for being so flexible. And maybe if you carpooled, because we've kind of set aside a portion of our parking lot for some of our ministry partners. And so I know parking was amazing before the storm here, and now it's going to be just a little bit less amazing. But thank you for being super flexible and carpooling. It's going to be like that for a little while longer. So please continue to be flexible with that. It's going to be a huge help. But also with our schedule of things, they're going to look a little bit different for a little bit. So I wanted to make sure you knew about what was going on with some scheduled things. First of all, students, are any students here? I knew I could count on you guys, yeah. And so some students are back. Parents of students, are you wondering if school will ever get back in session? I'm hopeful. Maybe we'll pray about that today. But so for our students, as most of you know, Grow Zone and Treasure Island for our preschool and grade school age kids, it is back on fairly normal schedule for today. I mean, it's normal schedule, modified program. So if you have your kids and you brought them in here because you thought they weren't meeting, they are meeting. You still have time to get them checked in. That's back on. Tsunami for our middle school students will be cranking back up this Wednesday, but they will be meeting in this room right here. So if you can imagine this room full of middle school kids, it's going to be awesome. Parents, stay away. Ripple Effect is our high school program, and they will be cranking back up next Sunday night, hopefully down in Studio 3, but stay tuned, stay dialed into all of our social media channels to make sure, because we're being real flexible with what goes on week to week here. Overflow is going to crank back up this Tuesday night right here at 7 o'clock. That's right. That's awesome. And I know our college students are ready to get back into school and learn, make the most of the semester. And Refuge is cranking back up Tuesday night, but they're going to move from Studio 3 to Treasure Island. So that's some of the logistics and tactics of what's going on over the next few weeks. And it's going to be, we're just operating out of flexibility for the next few weeks and maybe even months. But we are moving forward. Tomorrow is October the 1st. Can you believe that? It's October the 1st, and we're going to move forward because hope is really alive. And we know there's a lot of you who are here that you have legitimate reasons to be discouraged, to be sad, to be disappointed with what has happened in your world over the last few weeks. You have legitimate reason for that. But we want to let you know today you also have permission to be joyful. You have permission to smile and to laugh because we think about, remember the words of the Apostle Paul when he wrote from a prison cell. He said, "Rejoice in the Lord always." Rejoice in what God is doing all the time, regardless of our circumstances. So today we have reason and permission to have joy today, and that's what we're going to be a part of. Matter of fact, maybe you haven't thought about this, but we're only 85 days away from Christmas. Isn't that awesome? So we were supposed to tell you this 2 weeks ago, but because of the storm and canceling services, and the last week didn't feel appropriate, but we were supposed to be promoting something that's kind of brand new around here, because this Christmas we're going to celebrate Christmas in a kind of a unique way, and we're going to, in the middle of December, have an amazing Christmas concert that's going on with somebody who we're going to host in. It's one of my musical mentors for the last 30 years, because Michael W. Smith is going to be right here to do a Christmas concert. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Now, for you, since you're our family, tickets don't go on sale till next Monday, the 8th. But next Sunday, because you are my family and you're awesome, next Sunday you get first choice at tickets for a $5 discount next Sunday. So don't miss next Sunday, as we're going to move toward Christmas and life is going to go on, because hope is alive and God is still in control. So today we're going to be celebrating that as we sing together. So many stories of hope the last few weeks have been part of what we have seen and experienced. So many of you, hundreds and hundreds of you, have seen a need, and have seen that need as your invitation to get involved. And you have been a conduit of hope to the people around you. We had a group of guys in the parking lot for 2 weeks sharpening chainsaw blades for people. A lot of you got your blades sharpened. But in that whole thing was a story of somebody who saw a need and considered an invitation to get involved, and spent about 10 days of his own time bringing hope to other people who couldn't get their chainsaws working. He helped me, and he probably helped a lot of you. I wanted you to see and celebrate and be thankful also for Philip and his story. Check it out.
My name's Philip Reynolds, and I drive boats for a living. I'm a boat captain for some of the local companies in the area, and I do outboard and a little bit of work on everything. Well, I showed up when these boys showed up in town. There was a line about 8:30 last Tuesday morning, and I just wanted to get some blades sharpened on my saws. I usually hand file them, and I was like, man, these boys probably got the big guns and can sharpen them up pretty quick. And I was probably about 15th person in line, and probably 5 up from me, a gentleman was having some running issues. And I said, hey man, let me see that thing, let me take a look at it. And he was like, more than willing to say, here, have at it. I've been messing with it a few hours and I can't get it to go. And about 10 minutes I had it going, and literally I've been back every day with these guys trying to help the community out, trying to get people's chainsaws. And we have had few guys in tears, and gents and ladies, and just trying to get a tree off their car or a tree off their house. Probably ranges from about 100 to 150 that I've turned a wrench on or have an engine problem with, and some of them I can't, they're just too far gone. And these guys have been sharpening probably about 250 chains a day. And it's a constant. It slows down here and there in little spots, but there's usually a line of people waiting, and they don't mind waiting because they know they can get it done. And a lot of the shops, I mean, they say drop it off and we'll call you back in a couple weeks when we get some time to look at it. My grandfather passed away in May, and he taught me what I know. I'm very thankful the way I was raised and being able to learn what I've learned. And he was always there to help a friend or a family. I mean, he would spend countless of hours tinkering with something in the garage. I mean, he would rig something up, MacGyver the heck out of it, and to get it running, just to keep the guy going or the neighbor running, happy until parts came in. And I feel like the gift that I was given to learn what I can do, I wanted to return the favor.
You and I have a chance to be a conduit of hope for so many people in our world around us. Just pay attention, listen, watch, step in, meet a need, and lend a hand. And it's an opportunity for us as a church to be the church. Philip, thank you for what you did. It's a huge thing. We're going to stand and we're going to sing about this hope that we've been given from deep in our heart, this hope that the band leads us to sing. As we do, it would be a huge help if you could lend a hand by squeezing into the center, fill every seat in the middle of your rows as possible. And then once you say hello to somebody near you, tell them a word of hope and encouragement, and let's sing together as the band leads us.
Good morning, church. It is a joy to see all of your faces this morning. And we're going to worship, and I pray that as we sing and as we worship, that hope would rise up in us, that joy and peace would rise up in us as we worship God and as we recognize His presence right here in our midst. So let's sing together this morning. And how high the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me His own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Sing hallelujah. Hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. And hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Let's sing this out. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. 'Cause Jesus, yours is the victory. Yeah.
light of all that's happened, may we not look at the devastation and the loss, but may we lift our eyes and see what God is doing, that Jesus is our hope, and that he's all that we need, and that we can call to him and find peace. We can find hope. And so as we continue to sing these words, may this be the prayer and declaration over our lives. The words sing, I will build my life upon your love. I will trust in you. And I just pray that this is our stance as a family, as Wilmington, that we can say, God, from here on out, we build our lives on you, not on anything of this world, because the world will fade, but God, you stand true. So let's sing this together. I will build my life, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Only there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Yes, God, this is our prayer to you, that we will build our lives upon what you've done for us. And God, it's when we build our lives in you that we know we have nothing to fear, because you stand true. So God, today I pray that you would help us lift our eyes, even when it's hard to sing those words. God, that you would just fill us up with strength and courage. We just thank you that we can stand here today as a church united and worship you. We thank you for what you're doing in our city. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. Thanks for singing with us. You guys can have a seat. And our host team's going to come up and collect our offering.
Good morning. So good to be together another week, sort of behind us and continuing to recover and at least, recover may not be the right word, but at least another week, a lot of change in our community. People are starting to get some back to normal, back to a sustainable kind of putting pieces back together. A lot of folks in our area still are not, and we continue to remain focused on those efforts. Now, what I want to talk about today, because one of the things, honestly, I don't want this to sound more dramatic than it is, but last 3 weeks, Port City, our church, and as along with hundreds of other churches, have been, I would consider it a tremendous privilege and an honor to have been a part of what has happened and sort of the response to the devastation in our area and our surrounding counties and our entire region with campuses up and down, all as far as New Bern, Jacksonville, and Leland. I've had the privilege to go up to see those campuses and see what's happening there, and their response has been equally measured as any here. It's just been an absolute amazing, and I've honestly felt it's probably one of the greatest honors that I've experienced in my life to be a part of this church at this time. And so I say that not to say anything other than that's just how I feel. And the reason or the principle, the idea behind it is this wasn't a strategic plan. It wasn't because of our preparedness. It wasn't because we were smart or organized. It was simply because we were available. We simply said yes. And as I've been reflecting on this, there's so many things in my life that have been like that. Things, places where I simply was available or said yes. I may not have been the most competent person, may not have been the smartest person, may not have been whatever it might be. I just said yes. And there are life-changing yeses that we experience in our lives. One life-changing yes for me occurred in 1992. And I'm still swept up in that storm when I said yes to my girlfriend, my fiance, to my wife, now wife Julie. And I'm still swept up in that storm. It changed my life forever in a lot of ways that I could not have imagined, most of them for the better. All of them for the better. And so I want to talk this morning about saying yes. I want to talk this morning about saying yes. I want for us to see this a little bit differently. I want to give you sort of a tactical, practical way in which this can happen. The verse that we just saw on the screen, it says that we are his workmanship, his masterpiece. The word there is poema, his poem, his literature. We are stamped with some significance and beauty that God has placed in you and in me to demonstrate his heart, his character, his worth, his beauty. He says we are his workmanship and that we are put forward to do good works that he has prepared in advance for us to do. Now, for those of you who wonder if I'm a predestination guy or a non-predestination guy, I'm not going to tell you. People ask me that all the time. I do not believe that God is a puppet master orchestrating events by his, making us do this and making all these decisions. I don't see God as that. So when it says things like this, he is prepared for us in advance to do, we have to think about this a little bit differently, because a lot of you will just think that God's already written the script, you don't have a choice, and so you're just going to have to just deal with that. And I don't see God like that, because it's a relational thing. He's invited us into a relationship. So I want to talk about that and then give you a tactical way in which you can learn to say yes. Because there are things that we need to understand. And there's a disclaimer I want to give in this. What I'm not suggesting is that you say yes to everything. I am not suggesting for a minute that you say yes to everything. For some of you, that's why you're so crazy. Because you say yes to everything. You don't know how to say no. You're trying to please people all the time. You're trying to do what everybody expects you to do. And so you just say yes, 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 yes. Life-changing yeses must be accompanied by life-saving nos. Okay? So I want you to understand, and you don't need to learn how to say yes until you learn how to say no. So that's I've thought of this because one of the things that's happened is the response, particularly the hurricane. One of the things we've been saying is because it has been fast, it has been furious, it has been, and a lot of times we look around and go, man, this is a disaster. And the reason it is a disaster is because we experience a disaster. That's why they call it disaster relief. It is a disaster. You cannot live in disaster all the time. You cannot live in constant chaos all the time. You can't live your life reacting and responding to all the chaos that's around us. The Bible teaches us that He leads us by still waters. There are places and times where you need stillness and you need silence and you need some still waters to accompany or to go along with the raging waters that we experience. Both of these things are a part of our lives. If you are living in constant chaos, there are some things that you probably need to say no to that you haven't before. So you need to do that. I don't want to make this about just saying yes to everything. I want to talk about life-saving yeses, and they probably are more common than what you might think. If we will learn how to see them so that we can say yes to them, to simply be available for what it is that God has asked us to do. So I've been looking at this, and this passage is found in Ephesians chapter 2, and it's a very famous passage. If you have been into almost any class that teaches you how to share the gospel, you will find Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9 there. It is by grace you've been saved. You'll find this. I want to read this in its context, because verse 10, that we are His workmanship. We are stepping into these good works that He has prepared in advance for us to do. It's all in the same passage. And so in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 10, it says this: "For it is by grace that you have been saved, through faith, and it is not of yourselves, it is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." Now, one of the things that I believe about salvation, I do believe that salvation is a moment. It is a point where I say, I no longer trust in my own ability or worth or value. I don't offer anything to God. I trust fully in what Jesus has done for me on the cross. That is a moment, a proclamation, a declaration, a confession of my faith, saving faith in Jesus Christ. But I do not think of it as a single point in time where you check the box and then you go on. I think what is happening here, what we have to understand is there's something else going on. He says that we are saved by grace through faith. That there's this part of us that we are saved. It is grace that is given to us, that we enter into a relationship with Jesus. It is in trusting what He has done for us. That's the reality of this. And He says it's not from ourselves, it's a gift from God. And the reason is so that we don't boast. The reason is so that we don't boast. This is a really interesting thing. What this means isn't that you're going to run around and be a braggart. It just means that you're probably likely to go back and depend on what you do. You're more likely to continue to try to compare and to prove and to grab hold and to do things. And what he's saying is, when you understand what Jesus has done, when you understand the gospel, it ultimately frees you from that. Grace frees us from this work, from this trying to force or to prove ourselves. And this is an unbelievably freeing thing for us to live within. Because the very next verse says this: because we are God's handiwork, we are created in Christ Jesus for good works. Most people use good works to prove how good they are. That's why we do it. There's always some kind of, if I can do better, if I can be better, if I can do more, we're going to prove, someone's going to notice, we're going to demonstrate our worth, we're going to prove our worth. And what he's saying here is, no, we're already his handiwork. We've already been demonstrated as valuable, and we've been created to do good works. We've been created to give of ourselves to other people, which God prepared in advance for us to do. It is by grace that you've been saved through faith. It is not of yourselves. It is not of myself. It is a gift of God so that we don't have to boast. This frees you from competing with everybody. This frees you from the expectations of others. This frees you from all those things. You are God's handiwork, and he has created you for good works. The reason that so many people over the last few weeks have talked about and felt, man, it felt so good to do good for other people. Do you know why that's the case? Because that is precisely what you are made to do. The reality is, a hurricane forces this. The truth is, it doesn't have to. This is available to us all the time, everywhere. In fact, it's what every human being is looking for, is for someone to care about them, to serve them. So God has put us here and said, let's do this together. We are created for this, and he's prepared them for us. These opportunities are ahead of us, awaiting our obedience. And what's interesting, we've been talking about this as a staff, because we've been trying to kind of rally together and understand what God is doing in our church, and we're going to try to do this collectively with everyone here. And one of the things that will happen is we look back over the last few weeks and listen, the church has been at its best. I would say the church has been at its best, not just Port City, but the church. The way the church has moved, the way the church has served, the way the church has given, the way the church has responded. It's one of those moments where I said, man, this has been a beautiful thing to watch. The church has been at its best. What we don't want to do is 10 months from now, 5 years from now, go, remember when Hurricane Florence hit and we were at our best? That's like some of you who are like, yeah, when I was in high school, man, I was like a star. You're still living in that place. Right? You peaked at 18. We do not want to peak at Hurricane Florence. We do not want to look back and say we were at our best when this happened, because the opportunities that God has for us are always in the future. He has prepared in advance the works that we are intended to do. And what this is the idea of you and I awaiting this. These are you and I stepping into what has already been established for us, for you, for me. And it does not take a hurricane for this to be demonstrated. I sat down and made a quick list of why is it that we don't step into these things. And I heard this kind of in a pointed way over the response of the last few weeks. We were kind of forced out of that, but it happens every day. It happens all the time. First thing I wrote down is just trying to make some notes for myself. The reason I don't step into things that God has for me is because oftentimes I'm paralyzed by uncertainty. I don't have a plan. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to execute this. And I've heard this. People say, Mike, we're trying to figure out how to respond to the hurricane. We're trying to figure out how to respond to the needs. We didn't have any plans. We didn't have any strategy. We didn't know what to do. So we just decided we're going to help the first person we see. We're just going to do what's in front of us. And I thought that's a really good thing to do, because that seems to be what God uses. For some of you, you can't figure out, so you keep trying to figure out what program you need to sign up for. You keep trying to figure out, listen, as a church, we've done this. As a church, we've been complicit in this. How do we meet a need? We create a program. We sign people up for that program. Then by the time we get all the people trained and organized around that program, the need is no longer there, right? That's kind of why we always run behind. And what we got to do is we got to just be able to respond to what's in front of us. I'm not suggesting you don't plan. I'm not suggesting you don't prepare. I'm just saying that when you learn how to walk with God, there are things that He does that are already prepared for you simply to step into. The thing that I've learned with a tremendous amount, and I wouldn't say learned, been reminded of, but it has just boosted my confidence, because I know what my preparation was for this storm. I know what my plan was for this storm. I wanted to curl up in a fetal position and cry. That's what I wanted to do. Simply said yes, and God has been absolutely perfectly faithful to orchestrate, to bring people, to give wisdom, to do all the things that were needed in those moments, some very intense moments, mind you. And we can't be paralyzed by uncertainty, because it is faith that is the thing that keeps us moving. It's what pleases God. It's the origin of our salvation. It's what keeps us moving. And faith, by definition, requires uncertainty. The second reason I oftentimes don't step in is because I'm paralyzed by my own insecurity. I don't think that I know enough, or I'm smart enough, or I'm a good enough leader, or I'm a good enough Christian, or whatever it might be in your rule book. Why is it that you don't step into things? Because you don't know enough, because you may not have the right, you may not feel like you've done enough. Maybe you're still trying to make up for all the things you've done the last 5 years, and you've got 5 more years left on your sort of sentence. And then once you've been good for 5 years, you'll feel like you're worthy to do something for God. You are his workmanship. It is not of your works, lest anyone should boast. You got to begin to put these things together. Like, what is it that keeps you back? What inadequacies do you feel that keep you from stepping into the things that God has for you? What are they? Y'all, I've got a long list of them. It's so funny. I had some opportunities coming up and to talk, and my daughter was trying to encourage me, my oldest daughter. Her name is Madison. She's married, and she said to me the other day, she said, Dad, you know, I know there's a lot of pastors that get a lot of attention, and they kind of look the part. They wear like skinny jeans, and they're really hip and cool, and you know, you're kind of not like that. And then she said, you're kind of like Moses. He stutters, and he did. Like, this is not getting any better. And she's like, I'm trying to encourage you. I'm like, well, don't, right? Don't. She says, that's not what I mean. I didn't mean to say that you stutter. I said, no, that's exactly what you just said. But it's this idea, see, that I know my insecurities. I know my own weaknesses. Do you realize this is exactly the thing that God said? It is in your weakness that his strength is made perfect. Do not be afraid of them. It doesn't mean that you're indifferent or you're not growing. It just means do not be afraid of them. Do not be held back by them. It is in our weakness that he is made strong. His grace is proven sufficient in those moments. You know, there's courage that's required of you for all the things that are ahead of you that God will faithfully give you as you step into it. I was thinking about this. What does it mean that he's prepared these in advance? Now, I think about this because I think this is the best way to think about it. Let me back up. See, I stuttered again. Moses here. If you like or watch football, which a lot of you guys will be doing today, when a wide receiver is going out, he'll oftentimes go out and he'll fake to the outside of the field, and then he'll turn and he'll head back across the field, and it's a timing route. The quarterback will have already counted off, and when he sees the guy turn, he'll throw the ball to a spot, to space, where there is no one there yet. The ball has already left his hand, the ball is going there, and if that person who made the cut, the receiver who made the cut and cut back in is not in that place, the ball will fall in the field with no one around it. It has already been prepared in advance what is to happen. The only thing that is waiting for is for that receiver to step into the place, into the space that has already been designed. That's how I think God's works are designed for us. They're already there waiting for us. The simple thing is not you're a puppet on a string. It's that he is waiting for you to be in that place, in that time, available to what it is that he is asking us to do. And oftentimes we're either afraid or we're unprepared or whatever it might be. Another reason is we're distracted. And by distraction, I don't just mean, it's ultimately we're distracted by sin, because the fundamental thing of sin is setting up our own kingdom, our own way. I can do it myself. And if we're really honest, what most people are distracted by is their own selves. They're focused on their own needs. They're focused on their own way. They're focused on their own will. We are self-absorbed. We're distracted. The reason you can't see other people is because you are too focused on yourselves. We are too focused on ourselves, not you, we. We're distracted. This is the distraction. And we could talk about that more, but I think we're all okay with that, right? Okay. And then the fourth thing is we're just unaware. We're just looking for the wrong things. Our eyes are focused on all kinds of other things except for the things that God has for us that are right in front of us. I've seen this where people are trying to pay attention to who's looking or who's noticing. How can I be the hero? How can I be seen? And none of that really matters. There are things that God has prepared for you to step into. I think about the number of good works that happened over the last 3 weeks, and then I think about the number of good works that remain for us when thousands of people simply start looking for it. It can continue. It's church every day. We have services on Sunday, right? It's church every day. The opportunities are everywhere. It doesn't take a hurricane for you to step into that. So here's how we do this, and this is where I want to get real tactical with you. The reason our mission is to reach people and help them walk with God is because that is the hope for our lives. When I say walk with God, I mean have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I mean wake up, pray, ask, seek, knock, open your Bible and read. I want to encourage you. It's really interesting. What Jesus invited us to do is not to study the Bible so we can mine principles. He invited us to study the Bible so we can follow him. It's a very different way of thinking about the Bible and the scriptures. I read the Bible to understand who God is and how God is. And God has revealed himself to us in Jesus Christ. And it's amazing. This starts to jump off the page when you start to see this. Jesus said you look in the scriptures and you search for principles, you search for ways in which to make your life better, but the scriptures point to me because I am the life. What I'm telling you is when we help people walk with God, we are helping them walk with Jesus. If you walk with Jesus, if you follow Jesus, guess where you are going to end up? You are going to end up in a posture of self-denying, others-oriented love, because that's how Jesus arranged his life. Now, I'll tell you, Mike Ashcraft doesn't like self-denial nor others orientation. Mike likes self-promotion, and he likes it to be about himself. I don't know if anybody else is in that kind of camp, but that's what I like. So it is only when I follow Jesus do these things begin to happen and occur in my life and in my heart. The hurricane kind of created a palpable way to realize how important that is and how that view can actually be given to us in a disaster, but it's also available to us because he has prepared in advance the things that he wants you to do that are going to require you to deny yourself and to orient yourselves around the sake of other people. This is a radical message that Jesus has for us. If you follow Jesus, you are going to walk into these opportunities. If you follow Jesus, you are going to end up in these opportunities because that's where he's going to lead you. So then you have to stop and ask yourself, how consistent or how available or how willing am I to walk with him every single moment of every single day? Because when people think about God's will, we think about these big decisions. Who will I marry? Where will I go to college? What kind of job am I going to get? We think about this. This is what I mean when I talk about the fact that we are unaware, we are looking at the wrong things. We think that God's will hinges on the big decisions in our lives. Big decisions are important. Who you marry is very important. Okay, just to be clear. Where you go to school is not as important as people would lead you to believe. And we could go on, but I'm going to stop. So what I do and what I've learned to do is I do a quiet time. I wake up in the morning. I do it in the morning because it just helps me get my brain together. I used to do it at night. I open my Bible. I read my Bible. I read it every day. I journal, and I take a pen and a piece of paper, and I write down what I wrote about or thought about or what I feel like God said to me or some insight, something about what God said to me that day. And then I pray. And honestly, just to kind of let you in, for a long time, and I still do this, not as disciplined as I used to, but I would write out my prayers. Dear God, today I have 3 meetings. 2 of them are going to be fun, 1 of them not so much. I need your wisdom. And then I'll sit down and think about all the tendencies that I'm going to have during that meeting to force my way, to prove my point, to blah, 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 blah. God, help me see things differently. And I write them out. Do you know why I write them out? Because when I close my eyes, I see blue. And when I see blue, I think of the ocean. And when I think of the ocean, I think of the waves. And I start mind surfing 30 seconds into a prayer. And that is your pastor telling you he has attention problems in prayer. So I assume I'm either the oddball out or the rest of you guys might struggle with that as well. So write them out, pray with a pen. So I do this, and I've done this for years, because at the very end of my prayer, instead of saying amen, which is an important declaration, important declaration. But instead of saying amen, I would put 3 dots. And I did that to remind myself that this wasn't over, that this would continue through the whole day, so that I could try and be aware of what God is doing. Maybe he's answering the prayer that I prayed that morning in this moment. Maybe there's something he wants me to say or do. Maybe there's something happening here that I'm unaware of. I just had to look, and this doesn't mean you work at a church. It means you can be anywhere you are. He has prepared in advance good works for you to step into everywhere that you will be. Everywhere that you will be. So what this evolved into was I realized the importance of having a sense of God's presence, his will, his way in my life, especially when I had to make major decisions. So I developed a 3-week rule. Now this is your tactic. A 3-week rule. I call it a 3-week rule. And here is what a 3-week rule is. And I'm going to read this to you very clearly. I want to be consistently walking with God for 3 weeks before making any major decision. If I'm going to ask a girl out on a date, I'm not going to do it. But if you're going to ask a girl or a guy out on a date, I would consider that a major decision because it can impact your life forever, permanently, really. And so I want 3 weeks of consistency in my walk with God. If I'm trying to make a decision about taking a job or giving a large gift or buying a car or a house or going to school somewhere or making a move, for 3 weeks, I'm gonna say, I gotta make this decision in November, so I'm gonna back up 3 weeks and I'm gonna put it on my calendar. For 3 weeks, I'm gonna be praying and I wanna be really consistent in my walk with God. So when I get to that decision, I will feel as though I have made that decision in his will and according to his ways. Does that make sense? It's just a 3-week rule. And some of you are trying to figure out where your major decisions are so you can schedule. You got a couple more weeks to just do your own thing, right? The problem is that major decisions don't always give a 3-week notice. That's what I learned. Major decisions rarely give a 3-week notice. So the solution is consistency. I want to tell you why. For me, consistency provides stability. And 3 weeks gives me enough time to develop that, but it provides stability. It helps me not be, it gets a better frame of reference than what I just see around me. Because some days I feel really good and like I'm on top of the world, and other days I feel like I should be doing something else. Some days I love what I do. Other days I want to move to St. John and make hammocks. Some days, right? Some days feel like this, and some days feel like this. And what I've learned is that a consistency in my relationship with Christ, a walk with the Lord, to learn how to follow and live the way in which he intends for me to live, to breathe in and to receive his life, the more consistent I am in that, the more stability it provides for me, that I'm not swayed by all the different things around me or the pressures of the people around me, the expectations of others. This is a really important thing. 3 weeks usually gives me enough time to identify sin patterns. To identify sin patterns. You know, that's how sin runs, right? In Hebrews, it says we throw off every sin that so easily entangles, and every encumbrance. These are distractions. These are the things that lure us away. I discover sin patterns. What I want to be really careful to help you understand is that 3 weeks is not enough time to break sin patterns, but it is enough time to identify them. And when you can identify them, you know what you start to do? You start to learn how to walk in His grace through them, and you stop beating yourself up and promising you'll do better, and you start learning how to trust and live in His grace, which wrought forgiveness for you, which means that you don't owe Him any longer because it was paid on the cross, and you are free. So you have to promise. You know how freeing that is, especially when you're struggling with things, thoughts, words, actions, when you're struggling with these things. 3 weeks is enough time for me to start to find some consistency in the stability. And then usually the power of what God has done in my life helps me, and you begin to find some freedom from some of those things. Not always freedom from the struggle, but freedom from the sin. They no longer entangle you. They may still be there, but you're finding that your weakness, His grace is sufficient. His strength is perfected in those moments. It provides stability. And then the consistency, and I refer to it as the consistency of grace, because that's what it is. It is by grace we've been saved, not of ourselves. Consistency provides perspective. If I wake up in the morning and I say, God, help me to walk with your Son. Help me to listen to the whispers of the Holy Spirit. God, let me be sensitive. Help me to use the wisdom that you give to me to make the kind of decisions I need to make, or to lead in the way that I need to lead, or to be the kind of husband that you want me to be, or to be the kind of father that you have called me and created me to be. I begin to ask for those things. I begin to notice things. I begin to see things. All of a sudden I notice that there are good works all around me if I'll just step into them. Instead of laying on the couch after work, to go and have a conversation with one of my kids, to ask my wife and to pay attention to what's happening to her because of what her day has been like. I know what my day's been like, and I want more than anything for her to feel sympathetic for my day. I want to tell everybody how hard my day was or how important I am. I want all those things all the time. But when you follow Jesus, you start to begin to deny those things, and you orient yourselves toward the plight of other people. How are you? Do you realize this happens in the offices, in the classrooms, in the homes, every single day? And you know what it is? People are dying to be loved, to be noticed, to be cared for. You and I have been entrusted with the single most potent message that the human heart can ever know. And there are life-changing yeses all the time in our worlds that God has already established for you to walk into. The question is, will you be available? Will you be available? Every day, it doesn't take a hurricane. Every day, there are moments around us that are waiting for somebody to step into and to bring the kind of hope that every human being is looking for. And this starts not by resolving to do better or making a plan or mustering up the courage. It honestly starts when you walk with Jesus. So I hope that you'll just kind of have a new level of resolve. For some of you, you need to say yes to Jesus for the first time. You've been running from Him. You've heard His call. You know the drill. He died for you. And you're like, yeah. And that's the first life-changing yes you need to say. For others of you, this has kind of reminded you of, man, it does feel really good to orient my life around other people. And this is my own thing, I'm pretty self-absorbed at times. And Jesus, I need to say yes. I need to say yes to being available to how you want to leverage my life for the sake of other people, and not so focused on building my own kingdom and reputation and whatever it is it might be. And for some of you, you know there are conversations, there are people around you that might need a word from you, that might need for you just to notice. They might need an apology, it might need something. And what I'm asking you to do is not to calculate it, just say, God, what is it you have for me to do? And then you say, yes, I'm willing to step into that. I'm going to pray for us. And I hope that today as you walk away from here, you'll say, I'm going to get consistent in a relationship with Jesus. And one of the simplest ways is to use our Devos online. They're there every day. It'll help you read the Bible, reflect on it a little bit, and write a little something down. And I think it will begin to help you see the opportunities that he has for us and to be able to have some life-changing yeses. Father, I thank you. I thank you for your goodness to us, your faithfulness to us, the courage that you give us. For some here, there are some big yeses that are in front of them. Yeses that they absolutely know what they are, and they've been saying no for a long time. For others, there are life-changing yeses in front of them that they have no idea they're even there. I pray that you would give them eyes, give us eyes to see them. Father, I did not know that Hurricane Florence would be a life-changing yes. I hate it for what it has done to so many people, and yet in the depths, I'm grateful that I've seen you prove yourself faithful, not in sparing me or our city, but rather we found you faithful in your ability, your willingness to meet us and to be a present help. And I pray for those who are here and they need to say yes to you for the first time, that you would just speak to them, call them, and God save them. And Father, I ask that as we kind of conclude this time, you would speak to us, and I pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus.
Let's sing together. And Father of kindness, you have poured out grace. You brought me out of darkness. You have filled me with peace. And giver of mercy, you're my help in time of need. Lord, I can't help but sing. Faithful you are, and faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are, and all your promises are yes and amen. And all your promises are yes and amen. Sing Beautiful Savior. Beautiful Savior, you have brought me here. You pulled me from the ashes. You have broken every curse. And blessed I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness, and I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness, and I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness, and I will rest in your promises. My confidence, oh, is your faithfulness, and I will rest in your promises. My confidence, oh, is your faithfulness, and I will rest in your promises. My confidence, oh, is your faithfulness. Faithful you are, and faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are, God. All your promises are yes and amen. All your promises, all your promises are yes and amen. Every single one. All your promises are yes and amen. We believe in God. All your promises are yes and amen.
Oh man, that is such a great line and such a great way to live. That our confidence does not have to be in our own works or our own abilities, that it's in His faithfulness. It's a freeing way to live. Listen, if you're here this morning and maybe you said yes to Jesus for the first time, we would be honored to have a conversation with you. We want to help you in your relationship with Him. That's our mission. We can do that. We'll be down front. We also have folks in the gallery. We'd love to have a conversation with you about that. A couple other things you need to know is, as obviously folks in our area are still hurting from the storm. Tomorrow night, we will be having a representative from FEMA here. Will be using in this room. It's open to the public. He'll be walking through the process for how to navigate, and we'll be trying to do everything we can to answer questions. So if you have friends or people who are in that need that aspect, please bring them tomorrow. We're going to have hopefully plenty of room. We want to just continue to make available, our church, our building at least, as a resource to serve our community as we continue recovering from Hurricane Florence. So thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you guys next week, okay? Thank y'all. Thank you guys too. Thank y'all.